Those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. This is Success with Srini.
Today on the podcast, I'm answering a question that has come in from a long-time listener of my radio show and also a listener of the podcast. And they're asking me about stress. The question specifically says, Srini, how to quickly and easily lower stress levels? It's a great question. In fact, it's a very thoughtful question because stress is something that cannot be eliminated. Stress cannot be taken out from the system completely. And that is why they have very carefully used the word lower, because they know that's what I stand for. I stand for lowering stress levels. I do not suggest that you can eliminate stress. You can reduce stress. You cannot eliminate stress. Why? Because stress is a normal function of the human mind. The mind has to stress because it is taking in a lot of things. There are people who have eliminated stress. For that, you need to get into a delta state. That means you have to be removed from the happenings of the society. You have to completely isolate yourself. Some saints have done it, but it's very hard to exist and function in a society at this time of our lives. But if you study this whole thing, this world of stress, there are 4 things specifically you have to do. The first and the foremost is you got to identify the source of stress, where it is coming from, and you need to stop it at the source. So you eliminate the source, the problem goes away. If you cannot do that, then you need to either limit taking stress in or you avoid taking stress. Every time there is a stressful situation or you see somebody who's going to give you stress, you stay away from them or you stay away from those situations. So first is to identify the source and eliminate it or address it, or you limit and avoid it. And then you cannot do the first 2 things. Then you go to the third one, which is you fill your body with endorphins. You exercise, you run or do some activity that raises circulation in the system. It brings in some endorphins, and people go for massages for this too. So there are different ways to do it. Some people take medicines and all that, which is a whole different discussion in itself, which is beyond my understanding. You can do that. Then let's say if that's also not working, then you go do mind expansion exercises, which is meditating or yoga or hypnosis. All those things come in that space of mind expansion. And also beyond that, there are other things you can do, which is lead a healthy lifestyle in terms of eating right, sleeping right, and all that. So these are some things that will address stress. But these things have to be done. This has to be done methodically as a part of our daily existence. And cumulatively, all these things will definitely address stress, but they cannot eliminate stress. Now, how can you easily lower stress levels? That is the question. I want to share a metaphor, and I'm going to answer the question through a metaphor. So, long time ago, I came up with a formula called EFS. Imagine that you have a jar. You can fill anything into the jar. If I give you a jar and I tell you to fill something into it, what will you fill? Now, let's take an example of water. If you have a jar that you want to fill with water, would you fill the jar with bad water? You wouldn't, right? Now, what if I tell you that I'm giving you a jar and I want you to fill some water and go give this jar of water to somebody who is in the hospital fighting their life? What will you do? At this point, you will think a lot. And if you are a concerned individual, you would probably fill the jar with the right water, the best water you could get, because it's going to help somebody who is struggling in the hospital, who is sick in the hospital. So you're going to fill the jar, and then there is a high possibility you're going to seal the jar also the right way, so that no impurities would get in. Same is true with the mind. See, the mind is empty when you start the day. It has not booted itself early in the morning. The other day I was making a point. I said people wake up in the morning, stay there in the bed for an hour or 2 and keep thinking and playing and replaying all kind of emotions, all kind of events in the mind, getting worried, getting anxious. You're starting the day. It's an empty mind. You fill the mind with the right thoughts and you seal it. That's the most effective way to deal with stress. So you start the day with an empty mind. You fill it with the right thoughts. The right thoughts will create right actions within you. and then you fill it all the way to the top. There is no space to bring in anything else. And you seal it so that nothing else even creeps in. And you do that, but then this is mind, right? This is mind. So an hour or two later, you become tired. It's true that you don't bring anything in, but then what if the body becomes tired and you become exhausted? What do? Well, you open the jar and you release everything. And then you put in some new thoughts. And then you seal the jar and you move on with life. Where I'm going with this is, every hour you have to refresh your mind. So that's why we take breaks every hour. So we can go out, walk, get some oxygen. Getting oxygen into the bloodstream is a way of decreasing stress or reducing stress. So we do activities every hour, maybe for 10 or 15 minutes, things that will reduce the stress levels. This metaphor is very important, that imagining a jar and protecting the contents inside the jar and emptying the jar at an appropriate time and filling it again with the right content. That's the metaphor. I want you to listen to the metaphor. I want you to bring that metaphor into your own existence in whatever way you can and apply to your situation in whatever way you can. And that is how you lower your stress levels. Of course, you have to identify the source of the stress. Of course, you have to limit, avoid, or eliminate the stress levels as much, the sources of the stress as much as you can. Of course, you have to seek out some endorphins. Of course, you have to do some mind expansion exercises if you can. Of course, you have to eat and sleep right. All those things are true. But the sequence of emptying, filling, and sealing is also true. I'm going to stop here. Hopefully, today's podcast episode is helpful. Hopefully, I answered your question. That's a big one. If I did, let me know. And I'll be back tomorrow. So stay tuned. Bye now.